Before we get going, I think Bob should tell us his nun joke.
It's nonsensical. Welcome back into the studio. I'm Stephen Levine, sitting alongside Bob Pockris and Tom Vandervoort. When the three of us get together, it can only mean one thing. Let's talk NASCAR racing.
Let's do it.
Let's talk.
Let's talk about the next 4 weeks, because it's a pretty auspicious 4 weeks. Different tracks. You've got Texas, Kansas, Richmond, Talladega, really representing 3 different track types. And Bob, you contend that the next 4 weeks are going to give us a lot of information about the rest of the season. Let's start with Kasey Kahne. Nobody has had a worse start to 2012 than Kasey Kahne.
How disappointing is that? 3 finishes in the 30s, plus a 29th in 6 races.
Well,
what is he, 30th in the points?
31st. I mean, yeah, disappointing in the sense of his finishes. They've had speed, they've had good cars, but, at some point, when does Kasey Kahne get really frustrated? Now, we've seen Kasey Kahne do well amid adversity at times, and then at other times in his career, remember when he got out of the car at, what was it, Charlotte. And never got back in, right? So, I mean, I don't expect him to get out of a car and have your car not come back.
Right.
But, I mean, I think the question is how does he keep his focus, and how does he not let this start pressure him into making more mistakes on the track?
Well, at this point, he's got to get in the chase via the wild card. I mean, is that fair to say?
That's fair to say. I don't think that. I mean, the only way he gets in the top 10 is by winning races. The only way he gets a wild card is by winning races. So he's got to win some races.
And Kasey Kahne is a guy who can string a couple of victories together, especially on some of these downforce tracks.
The next 2 weeks, I think, are critical for him.
And he's good at Richmond as well. Okay, now we mentioned intermediate tracks. You've got Texas, you've got Kansas coming up. Everybody knows that these downforce tracks are the key, not only to the season, but specifically to the chase.
Yeah.
Tony Stewart, Bob, he's won the last 4 downforce races.
I mean, you're going to look at him and say he's definitely going to be a guy who's to contend. I mean, you look at last year's finish, or last year's race, April race at Texas, last year's June race at Kansas, which is now an April race, and you look at everybody who let at least 10 or 12 laps in those races, they all made the chase except for Clint Bowyer. So you look at these races and say, hey, whoever leads there, they're going to lead, other intermediate tracks. They're going to be ones to contend with. Texas, a lot like maybe Atlanta, a lot like Charlotte, Kansas, a lot like Chicago. This is going to tell you a lot about intermediate tracks going forward.
What about Carl Edwards specifically, Bob? Obviously, he comes into this year as one of the favorites, if not the favorite in a lot of people's minds. Matt Kenseth, Greg Biffle off to great starts. Carl Edwards just kind of not horrible or anything, but does he need to have a couple really good weeks here, or does it matter that much?
I still think Carl needs to win. He hasn't won in over a year, and I mean, I think everybody expects Carl to be up there, to be in the chase, but why didn't he win the championship? Because he didn't win races.
If he'd won a single race, another race throughout the course of the season.
I mean, I think Carl Edwards needs to win.
I also think it's a chance to see if Michael Waltrip Racing is for real. I think they've turned a lot of heads so far this season, and it could continue, but they're going to have to be successful on these downforce tracks.
Yeah, I mean, look, Clint Bowyer going back to Kansas, the place where they announced that he was going to Michael Waltrip Racing, and everybody's Kansas. Like, you crazy. And
what were they like again, Bob?
They're like, you crazy.
Wow.
And now he's come back to Kansas.
Appreciate the use of the vernacular, Bob.
And he say, look, I'm not so crazy, right?
Speaking of crazy, one last topic, if I may.
All right.
Dale Earnhardt Jr.
Is he crazy?
Are we crazy to think this guy's on the verge of winning a race here?
Crazy
Texas,
like a fox.
Texas, the site of his first win. Obviously, he's great at Talladega. Richmond, multiple wins there as well.
Yeah, 3 wins.
I'm saying he's getting one in the next 4 weeks, Bob.
I would ask for 8 weeks, so I can include all the Charlotte in there. But yeah, I mean, these are places where he runs well. 10 top 10s and 19 starts at Texas. He has 8 top 5s in his career at Richmond. These are places where he can win at. And, he's got a lot of confidence right now. Not only second in the points, but that run at California where they
was third at California.
I mean, all the knock on Dale Jr. was, this is a guy who misses his pit stall, and their pit crew leaves a gas can on the engaged while he drives out of the pits. And all that's happened to other people
kind of like
at California.
Life,
And so I think they gave him a lot of momentum.
I'm not worried about Dale Earnhardt Jr. I'm pretty confident that he will win this season. I'm not sure I'm as confident as you that he'll win in the next 4.
I'm trying to go out on a limb here.
Well, you're pretty far out on that limb.
Come on, Junior. Come on out there with me.
The weather's fine.
All right, that's been our look at the next 4 weeks with Bob Pockrass of... Whoops.
Bob Pockrass of Sporting News.
Oh, yes, Bob Pockrass of Sporting News. I'm Tom Vandervoort. That's Stephen Levine.
We don't know where we're from either.
We'll see you next time from wherever.